Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach at Carroll University, Coach Jeff Behrman. Coach Behrman's going to talk to us about the program and about his journey throughout college football. Before we get that far, we need to talk about the university. So the university is located in University Heights, Ohio, which is just outside of Cleveland. It's only one of 27 Jesuit colleges left in the country, and it's the only one in D3. There's 2,600 students. The acceptance rate is 82%. The graduation rate is 76%. Before aid, it cost you about $65,000 to go there. After aid, it cost about $29,172. The top three majors are finance, marketing and marketing management, and biology and biological sciences. For all this information, more information, help make you make a decision, go to www.jcu.edu. Also talk to your admissions counselor, talk to your guidance counselor, talk to whoever the coach is that's recruiting you. But without further ado, this is Coach Behrman.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is Jeff Behrman. I almost got messed up there. Coach Behrman, the head football coach of Carroll. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Carlo. Great to be here with you.
Absolutely. We're going to do this the same way we do it every week. I'm going to throw you in the time machine real fast. We're going to talk about your playing days and then work our way down through your career. So how did you find yourself at Carroll?
Yeah, it's I graduated high school in 91 and I went to Stowe High School, which is about 30 minutes south of Carroll University. You know, did the typical visits to a lot of schools, a lot of the OAC schools, some of the PAC schools. Was definitely going to be a Division III player. Not a lot of 5'9" quarterbacks running around the higher levels. And, I really didn't even realize that Carroll existed. I didn't know, even living so close to it, just had never ventured up this way. And, I showed up. It was probably a visit sometime late February, early March of my senior year. I hadn't made a decision yet. And, I just really liked what I saw, what I felt, and who I met here. And, it was a place that, when I left, I knew that's where I wanted to go and where I wanted to be. So, just a place that was really welcoming and continues to be the same type of place that I remember when I was an undergrad here.
Well, and you had some pretty legendary coaches that you were coming to play for as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the head coach was Tony DiCarlo. Some of that really impacted my life a lot. During my 4.5 years here, I did have an extra half a semester or half a year here. So yeah, Tony DiCarlo, he was the former wrestling coach that turned athletic director and then turned AD/football coach. I think I want to say he took over in 88 or 89. And so I think I might've been his third season there. And then, he had a great staff throughout my time here, guys that have gone on to become head coaches. Greg Deblack, Division III head coach there at Case Western Reserve, very, very influential in my life and my coaching career as well. Someone that as I was making the jump from assistant to head coach, someone that I reached out to and really helped me in the process that way. And then also Ron Dolciato. Ron was the head coach at St. Vincent College in the Pittsburgh area there. Same thing, someone that was here on the staff at that time that was really influential in helping me as I made that jump to the head coaching level. And Ron's actually on staff with us here now, helping out, and he's coaching the quarterback. So that's been fun to have him back on staff. But then, a guy like Joe Perella was someone that was very, very impactful for me during my time. I only had him for 2 years, but he was someone that was our offense coordinator and quarterback coach.
Now, I noticed when I was reading the write-up on you from John Carroll that in between is it the 93 season you took off or the 92 season?
93.
So what was there? Was it an injury? Because I know that plays a factor into your senior year as well, the injury bug.
Yeah, oh yeah, it certainly did. No, it was just more or less just some family things going on that I took that time off. But really, right, it all those experiences that you go through during your college years really help shape you and develop, who you're ultimately going to become. And I think John Carroll did a great job of that. And the people that were here, not just my coaches, but my professors, my advisors, Father Casey Bukala, who was our team chaplain. I mean, he was someone that was a really, really bright light in my life while I was here as well, too.
Now, while you're going through the process, is coaching on the radar? Is that what you wanted to do?
I think, I go back to my time at Stowe High School, and I had tremendous coaches there, coaches that I still stay in contact with to date. Tony Kajenko was my quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. Jay Tyree was very influential as well for me. Those are guys that I still communicate with, and Mike Benjamin, another one for me that's in in education. But I always in the back of my mind knew I wanted to coach, and it just solidified more. And it crystallized in my mind as I was here at John Carroll that was the path I wanted to take. And I honestly, I thought I was going to be a physical education teacher and a high school football coach. That was the path I was going to take. And, I guess we'll get into how it switched over as we go through my process. But that was my goal when I probably got it through my freshman year here and into my sophomore year. That was the path I was taking.
Now, Come 95, why the decision or why the move after graduation to Clarion?
So I mean, you alluded to the injury. So I played my last season in 95. I was a captain, and I was a starting quarterback. I had been a backup. I started a game my freshman year. I was a backup to PJ Insana, who's a good friend of mine. PJ had a tremendous career here, 3-year starter, the quarterback of the team that was tri-champs in the OAC in 1994. Went on to have a tremendous career up in the CFL. But so I came back. I had that last year. Was voted captain by my teammates, and in the first game of the season, second quarter of a game down at Ohio Wesleyan, I broke my ankle, and which required surgery, and that kind of accelerated my coaching career, if you will. So I did what I could on campus to help and stuff like that. And the guy that took over for me was a 4-year starter, set a lot of records, Nick Casario, who is now the general manager for the Houston Texans. So pretty neat story, right? As you go through that. But no, I mean, I had no connection to Clarion University at all. I had graduated. My last semester was in 95. I was just working in the spring of 96. And one of my close high school friends was a track graduate assistant at Ole Miss down in Oxford, Mississippi. And I went down to spend a long weekend with her and just kind of hang out and just get away for a little bit. And we had gone to an athletic department gathering, and I struck up a conversation with a gentleman there, and it turned out that he was an area scout for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That they kind of did the Southeast Conference in that region of the nation. So we talked. We hit it off pretty good. I mean, he's someone that I still communicate with to this day, at least once or twice a year. And he's still with the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. But anyways, about a week goes by. I'm back up in Ohio and I'm working, and I get a call then I got a phone call. I get called to the office so I have this phone call, and it ends up being this guy from the Steelers, and he knew that I wanted to get into coaching, and I really at that point was thinking, okay, college is the level I want to start at, and so with that, he basically was saying, hey, there's a graduate assistant position open at the University of Cincinnati. I was a GA there. One of the guys that I GA'd with there is still on that staff. And why don't you send your resume in and see if you can't get an interview? So, that was kind of after I had already sent out maybe, I don't know, 50 or so resumes since being back. And so I reached out to this gentleman at Cincinnati who was on staff, and he basically got back to me right away. He said, hey, RGA just filled up. It's been filled, but I know that they have a GA open at Clarion. Another guy that we this gentleman with the Steelers and I GA'd with here at Cincinnati, he's the O-line coach there. Send your stuff to them. They might have an opening for you. So I did it, and long story short, I got the call back. I went to interview, and I accepted the job, which was tremendous. Now, that same guy that they had GA'd with, that he ended up becoming my best friend in the football world. There, his name's Ron Crook. He's the current offensive line coach at Virginia Tech right now. So we were best men in each other's weddings over the course of the next 5 to 8 years. But yeah, so that's how I got to Clarion. I became a GA there and only spent, I guess we had a great season. I didn't know anything. I was new at the coaching world, right? I was a GA and coaching the tight ends and the split ends in a wing T offense at the Division II level. And fortunate to have gone to the Final Four there. We lost to Northern Colorado in the semifinal game. And about 2 months after that, the offense coordinator accepted a new job down at Glenville State College in West Virginia. And I followed him down there. His name was Warren Ruggiero, who's the current offensive coordinator at Wake Forest now.
So you kind of started me into my next question, why you ended up at Glenville State. What was the biggest difference from Clarion to Glenville State?
It's still Division II football. Its scenery obviously was different. But I was still young, right? I was my second year of coaching, and the entire offensive staff went with Warren down to Glenville. So he was the head coach. Ron Crook, who I mentioned, was the offensive line coach, offensive coordinator. I was a wide receivers coach. We had a student assistant. Mike Snyder was his name, who has gotten out of the coaching profession, but he finished his schooling up at Clarion and then came down and joined us for this 97-98 season. But no, the biggest difference, I guess, was just scenery, and football was football to me. It was good. Ron and I lived together, and I actually, in terms of my personal life, I met my wife at Clarion. So I met her in December when I was there, and then again 2.5 months later I left, right, and we went down to Glenville, and we we made the long distance relationship work, and we got married in the summer of 98. So it was just interesting how it all turned out.
Now, what advice would you give to young guys that are coming out maybe this year, going to graduate at the end of 2024, that want to get into the coaching profession?
Yeah, I think you got to market yourself. It's different now than it was then, right? I mean, I kind of got lucky, right? I made an acquaintance. I talked to him. He was nice enough, right, to call me and say, hey, send your resume here. And then again, now that door was shut, and another guy said, hey, I know somebody else. And that's how it works, right? It's not what you know in life and anything you do, it's who you know in life. And I was fortunate enough to just have people that knew one another that kind of connected the dots for me. No, I think you got to market yourself. You got to put yourself out there. You got to reach out, and don't get discouraged if you're not hearing back. That's something that I, as a head coach, when I get inquiries about positions on my staff, I always make it a point to at least email them back and let them know, hey, we don't have any openings right now, but I'll keep your information. If anything changes, I'll get back in touch with you. So, I mean, it's not easy, right? It's not easy to not hear anything and to have uncertainty, but you just got to continue to persevere and keep working through it.
Now, after the '98 season, you have a stop at Blackburn College where that's the first taste of being a coordinator. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was tremendous, to be honest with you. I mean, first year, as you said, that was my first full-time job. So the first three years, I don't think I made over $5,000 a year, those first 3 years each year. And then, I went out there, spent one year, I guess about 11 months. It was as good of a year as I have had in coaching because of the amount of responsibility that fell on my shoulders. We did not have a big staff, right? I was a first-time coordinator. I had only been coaching receivers at that time. I played the quarterback position. My offensive line coach was the head baseball coach. He had no football coaching experience at all. I love the guy. He's someone that I still stay in touch with. He was awesome. Mike Neal is his name. I believe he's still the baseball coach at Blackburn. It was just, I had to do so much, and it was a lot of trial and error. And it was really, really good for my development as a coordinator, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, I knew I'd been given a tremendous 3 years of preparation from Warren Ruggiero and Ron Crook, having those two guys and learn, how to do things on a professional level where, I'm forever grateful to those two guys, because then I was able to go and kind of put some of those and apply some of those things that I learned from them at Blackburn. And it was a tough year. I mean, it was a different type of school. They don't have football anymore. It was a work program school where the students actually, part of going to school there was you worked, you were on that campus, you did different jobs. I mean, they cleaned buildings, they built buildings. It was a student run school with administrators.
And were they, because I've heard this from some of the smaller schools, as coaches are talking about their journeys through, would you say that that school was supportive of the football program from the administrative side, or was that not really it was cool to have, but not a priority?
It's been so long for me, to be honest with you, and I was so just caught in being an offensive coordinator, and I was just wanting to be a football coach at that point, and I really didn't pay that much attention to administration and support and all that kind of stuff. I was kind of just in that one-track mind at that time.
Makes sense. So, Coach, after the '99 season, you have your first of two stops up in Trinity in Connecticut, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Now, why was that a move for you?
Yeah, I just, going back to the Blackburn, I just didn't feel like I was going to grow much more outside of that in terms of, where I wanted my career to go. So, that was back when they had the I guess what's called Football Scoop now was called K-Coach back then. That was kind of the internet. It was called K-Coach. And there was a job opening on there for a pass game coordinator, offensive coordinator at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. And I put my name in there and was fortunate enough to get an interview there at early June at Trinity College, part of the NESCAC. And it was a great experience. I mean, my first, move to the East in 2000, and really was what was going to be the first year of 22 and a half years on the East Coast. But I was fortunate enough to get offered that job by Chuck Priori, who is a dear friend to me. I mean, he is my biggest mentor. I worked for him for 14 years. As you go through my career and you look at the 4 years at Trinity and then the 10 at Stony Brook, which I know we'll talk about, but I was just on the phone with him this morning. I mean, he's someone that I stay in touch with, and tremendous offensive mind, and someone that really helped me learn, the organization of being a head coach, the organization of offensive football. It was really, really, really impactful for me.
When it seems like at certain points, at the right points of your development, you get to play under your coach, Del Carlo. Did I say that right? I don't want to.
DeCarlo, yeah.
DeCarlo. And then you have Warren, and then you have now this coach, where it seems like they come into your life at that right time and are that next level of your development from a coaching point, which is awesome, because I don't think a lot of people necessarily, maybe there's not a lot of, I can't imagine there's a lot of coaches that have that many mentors that in the way that you had early in your career.
Sure. Yeah, I was fortunate early on.
So after Trinity, then you go to Hofstra for 2 years, and then you go back to Trinity. Why the move to Hofstra, and then why back to Trinity?
So the move to Hofstra, was Warren Ruggiero, was the quarterback coach there, and the offensive coordinator left to go. I believe he went to Temple. His name was Dave Brock. Had gone on and coached in a lot of high-level places. Warren became the offensive coordinator, and then Warren called me and had offered me didn't offer me the job, but I went and interviewed for the wide receivers job at Hofstra. Again, was fortunate enough to be hired at Hofstra University, and spent 2 seasons there. The head coach at the time was a legendary guy, Joe Gardy. Joe Gardy was the defensive coordinator for the New York Jets during the New York Stock Exchange those years with Gastineau and Klecko, and so Joe Gardy was the head coach there. And just a tremendous place. I mean, just so much history in terms of the football program at Hofstra. Unfortunately, they have since dropped football. When I was at Stony Brook, Hofstra dropped the program, but there were multiple NFL players at Hofstra. Wayne Krebet was probably the bell cow. Dave Fiore, Lance Schulters. I mean, a guy that I coached, Marcus Colston, was a wide receiver there during the time. Willie Colon was a lineman there when I was there. Stephen Bowen was a D lineman. He played for the Redskins and the Cowboys throughout his career. I mean, these were guys that were in the program at the time I was coaching there. I mean, just a tremendous amount of talent. And then on that staff, prior to me getting there, Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator prior to me being there.
Okay.
Raheem Morris was on that staff. He graduated from Hofstra University. So yeah, pretty Jimmy Salgado, he's coached for the Bills for some time. Yeah, I mean, a lot of history, really, really rich. Really a good, very good development for my career at that time. It was my first opportunity to be at, I guess that FCS, or back then the 1AA level. So really good experience. I mean, I was able to coach some ridiculous players at the receiver. We were a spread offense, run and shoot. So it was pretty good. Yeah. So, but then as I was there in my second season there, that's when my son was born.
Okay.
My son was born in September, and in season. And my wife and I made the decision then that, I'm going to step back for a second, because when I was at Trinity for my first 2 years, I really believed in Chuck Priori, and I knew that was not going to be his last stop. He was going to move on. Right. And, for me, as I developed my career, I was thinking, it's not necessarily where I'm at, but it's who I'm with. It was more about the people I was around. When the Hofstra job came up, I didn't necessarily want to go for it, to be honest with you, as crazy as that might sound, because I knew Chuck would move on eventually. But Chuck was like, no, you have to go. I remember sitting in his office. He's like, you have to go. And this job, you need this on your resume so I can hire you at my next job. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do it. But when the time came, my son was born. I'm gonna go back to my second year there at Hofstra, and my son was born, and my wife and I made the decision. Chuck had the opening again, my exact same job, and it
Mhm.
was doubled in pay. It was doubled in pay from when I was there before, and I was getting a $20,000 pay raise to leave 1AA Hofstra to go back to Division III. I was getting so there was some of the financial implications with that as well.
Yeah.
In terms of going back there, and so we spent 2 more seasons there, and that was great. We had back-to-back undefeated seasons
Mhm.
at Trinity College, and then Chuck was offered the job at Stony Brook University in 2006, actually 2005. He was hired in December, and then I was able to follow him there to Stony Brook, which led to the next 10 years of my career.
And why was that a more permanent fit? Was that also due to Chuck and the fact that your family, you wanted to be more stable, I guess, in this is where I'm going to be?
In terms of going to Stony Brook with Chuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was definitely stability. Definitely there was I had a tremendous relationship, and still had, as I said, tremendous relationship with Chuck. He was the O-line coach. He was the coordinator. We co-coordinated a lot of times. I was the quarterback coach. We worked really, really well together. And it was a move up, right? It was Stony Brook was an FCS school. It was just going scholarship. So there was an excitement about that.
Mhm.
So it was scholarship. We were in the NEC the first year. You were able to give about 30 scholarships that first year. The second year we went independent. We were an independent program, and that was because our university president, she and our athletic director, they wanted to take the program to a full scholarship FCS level, where the NEC at the time was only going to provide 30 scholarships. That was it.
Okay.
So we went independent, and then in year 3 we joined the Big South. So we were in the Big South with Coastal Carolina, Liberty,
Mhm.
Gardner-Webb, VMI, Presbyterian, Charleston Southern. I might be missing a school there, but so we joined the Big South, and now we were able to elevate all the way to 63 scholarships at the FCS level, and so we were able to do that. That was tremendous experience in terms of the travel, seeing different places, playing different programs,
Mhm.
and then from there, we left the Big South, and ultimately where we wanted to end up is where they are now, which is in the CAA, the Colonial Athletic Association. I think they've changed that, the Colonial Athletic Conference, I believe.
Mhm.
And it's called the Coastal Athletic Association now that I think about that. But back then it was the Colonial Athletic Association. So I think my last 3 years at Stony Brook, we were in the CAA. And that again is based on who Stony Brook is, top 50 public university in the country, large land grant university, wanted to associate ourselves. That was the vision of the president at the time and the AD, to associate ourselves with other like schools, which were like that.
Makes sense. And it's interesting that they could see that ahead of, like, I mean, that's why they're the president and the athletic director, is they could
Yeah.
see that was the vision. So after those 10 years, was Union because it was that next step up and you're in the seat now, or why the move? Because it seemed like you really, really liked being at Stony Brook.
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, 10 years. I mean, I had some other opportunities during my time at Stony Brook to move on. But again, it kind of went back to, it's not where I'm at, it's who I'm with.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked where I was. My son was growing up, he's pretty much raised on Long Island. And then, yeah, I mean, the 2015 season ended, and a great opportunity presented itself, which was, the job at Union College opened up. And it was, I think a good time in my career just to make that jump to head coach. And, again, as I said before, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I had a foot in the door because Chuck Pryor, who I worked for 14 years, he was an assistant coach at Union College back in the 80s. He was the offensive coordinator.
Okay.
For a head coach by the name of Al Bagnoli. And Al Bagnoli just to give you the background of Chuck, like Al Bagnoli went from Union College, where they played in a national championship game. He went to become the head coach at University of Pennsylvania in the Ivy League. Chuck went with him, and I think they spent 9 years together at Penn. And then that's when Chuck went to Trinity. Chuck went to Trinity from there. Okay. So the job opens up. Well, the athletic director, Jim McLaughlin at Union College, played offensive line for Chuck at Union College. So when the job opened up, Jim called Chuck up to say, hey, the job's open. You got anybody you'd recommend? And, long story short, Chuck said, yeah, I got a guy. I got a guy that I think would be great. And, I went up there, I interviewed. I loved it. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the community. I love the small school. Again, I think that goes back to my days here at John Carroll, Division III school, really innocent level of football that, you're doing it because you love the game and you love, you love the balance of academics, athletics. And I was afforded the job and, took that program over in January of 2016.
Now, so 4 years into your program, you get hit with the same thing everybody else got hit with about 4 years ago to the day, maybe a couple days off. But so what was that experience like? Because I know everybody had a different experience. Everybody was doing different things, trying to get teams on the field, trying to get games played for the athletes. What was that experience like going into that would have been your fourth season there?
Well, it would have been my fifth. It would have been my
season
because we played 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah. And then we had the 20. So, unfortunately, if you look at the success of Union College, the 2019 season. So when the 2019 season, we went 10-0 and we went to the second round of the playoffs. And we had a lot coming back for the next year. A lot of players, a lot of key contributors to that undefeated team. And then to your point, right, March came around and, COVID hit and the world shut down. And then somewhere in July is when we got word that we weren't going to have a season, that the league that we were in was not going to have a season, which was the right thing to do. I agree with that. And, so we were still able to practice, maybe not to the level that a lot of other Division III programs did, but it was just as important just to be together with our team and be around one another with our workouts, our lifts, and then whatever practices we could have on our campus. I mean, certainly roles of athletic coaches on campuses, small campuses like Union, changed a lot during that time. I mean, we spent about 3 to 4 days a week working in the test center on campus, just doing different jobs and helping the school itself just continue to move forward. And we were fortunate because we were on campus and our students were in classes the fall of 2020, where a lot of schools remained closed and stayed online. But our administration said, no, we're gonna bring students back and we're gonna and make the best of this right now. So yeah, I mean, your role shifted and you did what you had to do, right? In coaching, you got to adjust and overcome. That's rule number one of a coach. It never goes the way you think it's going to go.
Now, in 2023, why was it time to come home?
It was honestly, it was just the perfect time for me. I loved Union College. I loved it. I loved the student athletes that I had the opportunity to coach there and meet there on other teams. The administration, the professors, I mean, the people in that area. I mean, again, my son went through his junior high and high school years in that area. But I always knew that I wanted to come back and coach at John Carroll, and the job opened up. And then again, the timing was just right. My son was graduating. He graduated from a high school, a prep school, actually. Was at Salisbury School in Connecticut. He graduated from there last June. And he's attending school at the University of Notre Dame, where he's a lacrosse player. So
Wow.
now, instead of being 12 hours from him in upstate New York, we're only 3.5 to 4 hours from him.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents still live in the area.
Okay.
And they're getting older, right? They're slowing down. So it was just kind of the perfect timing to just come back to this area, be home, and honestly, to give back to a university and a community that gave me a lot and
Mm-hmm.
helped me grow and develop. And because I certainly, my beliefs in coaching, what I experienced as a youngster and as a college player, and as I became a coach, is coaching is a service industry. We're here to serve other people, and that's what this university is all about. And the Jesuit mission of men and women with and for others. You really can't be self-centered here at John Carroll. You got to be other-centered, and I knew it was an environment that I wanted to be back in eventually, and I was afforded again the opportunity.
Now, put us in the room with a recruit or a parent, and you kind of just filled us in on a lot about what makes John Carroll so great. But what are you talking to when you're talking to the parents? How are you conveying that message that for the next 4 years your son is taken care of? We're gonna take him to that next level of being an adult, being a man. And what are you saying to the player? What are you looking for in a player? Minus the fact kid's got to be able to play ball. I know that that's off the bat. He's got to be able to play football. But what else are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, in terms, character is number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get back to your initial question, but we're looking for character here. I mean, you want good people in this program. We want good people on this campus and in this community, and that's what's here.
Mm-hmm.
Good people, they make good decisions and certainly are focused on others and not themselves. But certainly we want someone that wants to be challenged academically, and they want to be challenged athletically too. And that's something that we talk about here at John Carroll. Like, this is an environment where high academics and high athletics coexist, and that's the standard, and that's the expectation, and you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. That's what I found when I was a student athlete here. I was able to get a tremendous education, to be challenged in the classroom, to really help develop myself. And that's part of the Jesuit mission, through intellect and through character, to learn, to lead, and to serve. And when you look at the history of the Jesuits, I mean, they have been teaching for over 500 years, right? It stood the test of time. Their model, their way of developing students on campuses. And when you think of a Jesuit education, you think of this thought of personal identification and personal formation. You're going to develop ultimately who you're going to be through this curriculum that we have in place here for you. And also this thought of cura personalis, which cura personalis in the Jesuit mission is it's care for the entire person, right? The development of the entire human being. And I think sometimes, you can't always get that in an environment, but you do get that here at John Carroll University. And from an academics perspective, I mean, the academics here are second to none. I mean, in terms of, we're the number 2 Midwest regional university in that region, where we have the number 1 business school in the state of Ohio. We're the number 1 business school in the country for job readiness and job preparedness. And that goes along with the mission of the school. When you think of the education here, there's 3 pillars. The first pillar is content learning, right? You're going to learn in the classroom. You have to learn the material. You have to become an expert on that. But then you think about the second pillar, which is just as important as the first pillar, which is experiential learning. This university is going to provide you opportunities to go outside the walls of the campus and experience very important times of your life to determine what you're ultimately going to do and become through internships, through practicums, through service, right? There's service is a big piece of this university. As I said, men and women with and for others, that's all about service, right? So, I have guys that run their own service organizations that are I mean, it's amazing what our students do here in terms of how they care for other people. So again, second pillar, experiential learning. And then the third pillar, just as important as pillar 1 and 2, is professional development. It's one thing for you to know the content and be an expert, but are you professional and developed enough, right, for life after John Carroll, so that you can communicate with other professionals and that you can, again, continue to succeed. The outcomes from this school are tremendous, and our location allows for that. Here in Northeast Ohio, being 20 minutes from downtown Cleveland, with internships and practicums. I said it already once before, and I'll say it again. And I say to every family I talk to, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And we're going to connect our undergraduates and our graduating seniors with our alumni. And there are tremendous resource here is our alumni and the network that they'll have.
Coach, let's talk about the 2023 season. So 8-2 overall, 8-1 in the conference. The 2 losses are not slouch. Neither team is a slouch. You open the season with Wisconsin Whitewater, 27-23 loss, and then towards the end of the year, the loss to Mount Union. Now that we're on to the next year and the dust is settled, what's the biggest takeaway for you guys from 2023?
I'm proud of our guys for sure. I think, and you got to think about what this program, the transition of this program over the course of the last 3 years. The guys in the program that were juniors and seniors, I was their third head coach in 3 years. Their third head coach, right? They had a coach in 2021. They had an interim coach in 2022, and then I took over in 2023. So I think it shows the character of the kids in our program, the resilience that they have, the perseverance to overcome the adversity that they were dealing with, and the stick-to-itness, which there's not enough of that in the world today, right? And these guys stuck to it, and they made it. They made a great season out of it that way. Certainly, you always want to win every game, right? I mean, you go to every season. And we take a week by week approach, but I thought in a very short time they bought into what myself and our staff brought to the table, and we had some tremendous senior leadership. We had some 5th-year guys that stuck around that were really, really instrumental for us to have that type of a season. But those guys are not here anymore, right? They graduated, they exhausted their eligibility. We have a few 5th-years coming back next year. But it's all about moving on to the next year. And I think we learned a lot about, as new coaches in the league, right? The league and the types of programs that are in it, because you could say, I was in the league when I played here, but that was 30 some odd years ago. So, and things have changed a lot over time. But no, I think, where I'm really excited about where we're at right now as a program in terms of, our work ethic in the weight room, our work ethic in the classroom. Guys have done a tremendous job with that. We had some really good character and leadership development sessions with the entire team throughout the month of January and in February, the month of February. And now next week we'll start into our spring ball phase.
Well, and I also saw as the off season's going along, you added Coach Paul to the staff. I think he was like our 3rd coach that came on. Happy to see him land right back where I think he thrives as a football coach. So it's good to see that he's on your staff. I have a couple other questions.
To have him. We're fortunate to have Dean Paul. It's incredible, and I just appreciate our administration here. Helping me to make that happen. It wasn't me. It was our administration. I went to them and they came to me and we said, hey, and that's when I say administration, that's my boss. That's Brian Polian, our athletic director, who's a teammate of mine. And, he, being a football guy like he is, he saw the value in having someone like Dean Paul on this campus, in this department, and in this program, and very grateful to Brian for making this happen.
Absolutely. Now, Coach, interesting as we're moving through this offseason, there's a lot of conversation going on about the playoff system. Right now, it's 32 teams that get in. I believe the proposal has been made for it to go to 40. It has to be voted on. Where do you fall on that? Is it time to expand that playoff system for the Division III level?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly, I think the more teams you can give that opportunity to, again, to me, you're gonna add value and great experiences for a lot of student athletes, right? It always has to be about the student athlete. So I think if you add 8 teams, that's 8 teams to 8 rosters that are going to get to enjoy playing additional football in a season. And I think it makes all the sense in the world. As we move through, I think there was a couple years there that at Union where we probably could have got in if there was a 40-teamer, maybe next year, or excuse me, last year for us, if there was. But again, in the end, control your controllables and go win your games and leave no doubt when it's time for the playoffs to be selected.
Now, Coach, my next question I got to ask, fall of 2025, you guys will be in the NCAC as opposed to currently in the OAC. Why the move? As a school, why move to a new conference?
Yeah, I appreciate the question because I think it's really important. This was something that even before I was hired and before Brian was hired, this was in the talks here at the university. And so and I really, again, it is just, I'm going to start by saying this. It is the right move. It is the right move for John Carroll and for this, the sustainability and for the success of the university in the long run. And the reason for that, and again, I give our administration, our senior leadership team, a lot of kudos and credit for that because they have vision. And it's so important, right? In higher ed right now, you're seeing it every day, right? Of schools, smaller private schools that are closing their doors or need to close their doors. I know just in the last 3 weeks, 3 schools have closed their doors. So, or have announced that they're going to close their doors. So what our administration looked at was we need to become, because there's what's called an enrollment cliff, okay, that's coming in higher ed. And that enrollment cliff, all right, that's going to hit in the next 4 or 5 years is really going to take a toll on small private universities and colleges. And what that is there's less, especially in the state of Ohio. All right. So in the state of Ohio, the research shows that there's less college age students in 4 to 5 years. And of those students, less are going to opt to go to college, for higher ed. All right. So when you're looking at a student body of 75% from the state of Ohio, well, in 4 to 5 years, it's going to be really, really hard to get those kids because there's going to be less of them. So our administration started looking at, what are the different ways that we can become more national? The NCAC actually came to us. That's what I was told. They came to us. We didn't seek them out. They came to John Carroll and said, we want you in our conference. You make us a stronger conference academically, athletically. And so we went down that path of researching this and seeing if this made the most sense. And when you look at this and you look at the numbers, this is going to allow us to become more of a national brand. And that's the goal of the university here, to become more of a national brand and to be able to open up new markets across the country, to be able to bring students to Northeast Ohio and to attend John Carroll University. So the reason for it to be athletics is, in a lot of cases, athletics really is the tip of the spear for this movement, right? We're going to open up with our recruitment of all sports these different markets across the country. And let's face it, John Carroll has a specific niche, all right, in Northeast Ohio. We are a Jesuit university. We're one of 27 Jesuit universities in the country, and we are the only Division III Jesuit school that plays football. That will resonate with a lot of people across the country at other, Catholic, Jesuit, high schools, other private schools, and other public schools as well. So it opens up a lot of different areas for us that way, that again will allow us to really be strong in our future. I mean, and again, to go on to the vision of our administration, I mean, yeah, we have a very strong business school here. We're a liberal arts college. We're opening up a college of health in the fall of 24.
Wow.
We started a brand new nursing program this year. We started an engineering program. We're adding a health administration, and that makes sense. In Northeast Ohio, we have Cleveland Clinic, we have University Hospitals, Metro Health. This is going to attract students to come to John Carroll University. We're providing a tremendous service for them.
When it seems, again, as we talked about with Stony Brook and some of the other schools that you have been at, the administration seeing 5 years down the road and not thinking about next year, as you know. And so, Coach, my last question for you before we get into the random five is, what is the significance of Division III? Now, you've touched on a lot of things that make Division III important, but if you could sum it up into what's the significance of the Division III level as a whole and Division III football, what would you say?
It just provides such an opportunity and a platform for students to be athletes as well, right? And to again be able to balance, their academics and athletics and still have a social life. They do it because they love it. I mentioned that before. I mean, it is not easy to be a college athlete at any level, right? At any level. So I just have so much respect for the Division III athlete because they're not being paid, right?
Yeah.
They're not getting scholarships. There might be little NIL deals here and there, but they do it out of the pureness and the innocence of just loving the sport, loving the connection that they have with their teammates, and that connection that's who we are as human beings, right? We're wired to connect. And I mean, the culture here, the brotherhood here is as strong as I've ever seen it at any school. It's really remarkable. But I just feel like it's just it's an important level. And I think as you see what's going on at the higher levels right now, it makes me even more proud to be a Division III athlete and be able to serve our community here.
All right, Coach. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Where would it be and why? That's a great question. Oh, boy. That's a tough one. I don't know. Anywhere in the world. I guess I'd have to ask my wife.
It's a good answer.
Yeah. That's just not me. Like I've always, wherever I got to go and work, that's where I go. But if I had to retire somewhere, I'd probably go to South Carolina.
Okay. Do a little fishing and golfing?
I don't golf. I wouldn't mind fishing though, but hanging out the beach, that'd be all right with me. Yeah.
What's the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
Ooh. Patience is a big thing, right? You gotta be patient. And so I'd say patience, but I'm also gonna say you gotta be ready to adjust too. Because I think as you go through a career, if you stay in this for long enough, kids are gonna change, cultures are gonna change, society changes on a yearly, but you gotta be ready to adjust and to evolve to stay up with what's going on, not just in football, but in society and in the world. So I guess you gotta be ready to adjust. I mentioned that before. You gotta adjust and overcome.
If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be a teacher.
Okay.
I would imagine I would be teaching somewhere at the high school level, and because again, that to me, that's what coaching is. Coaching is, I was taught that early. It's you're a teacher, right? You're trying to take someone from point A to point B, with whatever subject you're teaching.
This is being thrown into the random one because I realized I forgot to ask you, why WVU for your master's?
Because I was at Glenville State, and that's who was paying for my master's. Yeah, I used to have to leave practice on a Tuesday. I'd leave like 30 minutes early, and I'd have to drive to Clarksburg, West Virginia. That was the satellite campus of Robert C. Byrd High School.
Yep.
And then some of my summer classes were all the way up in Morgantown. But yeah, I do that commute from Glenville, West Virginia, or Glenville, as they would say it.
What's the best compliment you've ever received?
I mean, the one I get the most is you got a great smile.
Okay.
Keep smiling. And so I'll just go with that. That's the first thing that came to my mind.
And on the other side of compliments, what's the best insult you've ever received?
Oh. I'm trying to think of what my wife has told me over the years. You're a coach. You're going to be in it long enough. I mean, someone's going to tell you how to do your job at some point. So, probably something
Everybody
like
wants to coach from the stands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Coach, the last question I ask everybody, was there a question that you were expecting? And if so, how would you have answered it?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say I was expecting any questions. So no questions of expectation that you didn't answer already. I thought you did a great job, Carlo. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to be on and talk about your program and what your career. For those of you that are sticking around, you know what comes up next. We go to overtime. I explain to my fiance football. We try to teach her as much as we can leading up to the season so that when she picks the games this year, she's not just picking a team. She actually knows what she's watching. So for those of you sticking around, we'll be right back. And this has been Coach Jeff Behrman of John Carroll.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.